Hello everyone, welcome back to another session of series of workshop by DotSlash 5.0. I am Prashant, your host today, and today we have Vikas Singh with us. He is a full stack developer at FusionHQ. Also, FusionHQ is our sponsor, and thank you for supporting us. Now, I would like Vikas to give an introduction to your to our audience, please. Yeah, you are audible.
Yeah. Hey everyone, I'm Vikas and I'm a full stack developer and co-founder of Fusion. We are an open source analytics platform. And prior to this, I was analyst at EY and right now currently working full time on Fusion. So yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, that's great, Vikas. Now, today, the most exciting parts comes. Like we are going to talk about the rise of open source SaaS. SaaS is an acronym for Software as a Service. Vikas will be talking about it and going through everything around it, and he will be introducing us to this world. So, all over to you, Vikas.
Sure. Let me quickly share the screen. I hope the screen is visible now. Let me, yeah, you guys can see it, right? Let me just reshare it. I hope this is visible. Sure. Yeah, I'll quickly go over it. So
Yes, it is visible to us.
yeah. So we'll be talking on the rise of open source SaaS. But before that, let's just jump into and see what open source as well as SaaS is. So I briefly talk about what I do. So just to recap, I'm co-founder and full stack developer at Fusion. We are an open source product analytics platform, and you can also find me here on GitHub and Twitter. Um, Let me just quickly go over the topics that we'll be covering. So, what is open source? What is SaaS? Then the latest trend of open source SaaS. What is product analytics and Fusion? Maybe if time permits, we'll have a quick demo of what Fusion is. And then how you guys can convert your own SaaS project to a SaaS company. So I assume a lot of you might already be knowing what open source is. So basically, open source is making a software source code available to others so that they can modify it, see the code, what's behind the code, and also redistribute it. So kind of like there is this code available on the internet, you can modify it, resell it, build another software on top of it. Open source, there is also open source hardware. We'll be primarily talking about what open source software is. These open source software actually allow you to build community powered projects. For example, Linux is one of the biggest open source project. So initially started out by someone building a Linux kernel, and right now we see there are so many operating systems that are based on top of that. um, in open source software, people like you and me, they kind of go and kind of support this project by contributing new features or bug fixes. So Linux uh, is entirely powered by developers who are building these software features every day and kind of fixing any bug that comes out. Now, how is that related to SaaS? So first of all, let's just go over and discuss what software as a service is. So it's basically SaaS, or software as a service, is a way of delivering software solutions from internet without making you maintaining the infrastructure and all the resources management thing required for running that software. For example, Gmail. So right now how we use Gmail is basically go online, go to the website and kind of we can start sending and receiving emails. If you remember, before Gmail came out, the way you could email was host an SMTP server and find a domain name for yourself. So like gmail.com, we automatically get it. You kind of have to buy a domain name, some sort of .com for you, host a SMTP server, build a client software that you can run on internet, and then you can start sending and receiving email. What Gmail did is, they'll host the SMTP server, they'll buy the domain name. All you have to do to use it is go on the internet, create an account, log in, and you can start using it. Another software that also has came out and kind of uh, just when SaaS as a business was rising is Slack. So Slack is again a messaging platform, just like Microsoft Teams. Companies, mostly enterprises, use it for internal communication. This is also a software as a service because you don't have to maintain any kind of internal infrastructure to use it. All you have to do to use Slack is pay them monthly bill. So you have subscription based plans, just like we pay for Netflix and Amazon Prime. You kind of pay them a monthly bill and they do everything for yourself. You can just use the software. Now, recently we've been seeing this trend of open source SaaS solutions. So open source is something where the software is free for you to use and redistribute, modify, and build on top of it. SaaS is something where a company is building and maintaining something for you and kind of outsourcing it so that you don't have to do uh, the maintenance and infrastructure job. Um, but open source SaaS, another field of companies, uh, for example, Postman, which is an Indian open source SaaS. What they initially do is started out as a open source developer tool. So if you don't know, Postman is just an API client. So it's a GUI that you can use to kind of debug um, HTTP APIs. And how they started out is building this client solution where you have this simple UI that you can use to like debug APIs, built by a developer like us. He shared it. It was open source, so the code is available on the GitHub. You could use that code locally, run it, and ultimately it turned out to be a big company right now. Um, so you still have the open source core there, but you also have a product around it that is hosted for you. So you can run it locally, but you also kind of have this open source hosted service. So you can go to Postman's website, download a client. So it's both open source and SaaS as well. Then there are other big examples. So GitLab. Uh, as a student developers, many few of us know, but GitLab is something similar to GitHub. Um, while GitHub focuses on student and kind of giving them a simple platform to share their code online, GitLab is more focused on enterprise users, so like big companies who kind of maintain their own code. GitLab is like that only, but it also started out as open source project and they are also powered by community. So unlike GitHub, where you have a lot of developers in the company who are building this software, you cannot see how the product GitHub is built. GitLab is like a couple of hundred of developers that are building it which are from the company, which are company employees, and rest of the people who are building GitLab is open source contributors. So people who are coming again online and kind of fixing the software, contributing to the code. And just like that, Mattermost is also there. So Mattermost is also an open source platform. It's an alternative to Slack. So just like the software we discussed for sharing internal code, Mattermost is more like hosted solution of internal communication. So you can buy it, host it yourself on your own servers, and you can use it for internal communications. So uh, these are kind of companies who are already there. They are big companies who are open source projects. Then now they have become big SaaS providers. Um, but recently we are seeing a surge of new open source solutions in India. So if you look at all the logos down here, um, these are some of the projects. And the very famous one, these projects on GitHub have kind of like 4K, 5K stars. So like pretty huge projects, and are also backed by VC. So they are like full-fledged companies, companies like Chatwood, who are again customer engagement solution like Intercom and Zendex. So which are, so they actually have already, there are already existing solution that do customer engagement, but this is an open source company that is allowing you to do that. Then just like them, we are also there. So Fusion is again open source product analytics. There are similar platforms out there which are closed source, and a lot of tools like Superbase, Signals, and Super Tokens, and most of them are from India. So, understanding that, what is the reason behind seeing these solutions coming out, while there are already SaaS solutions, big companies backing up solutions like Slack, analytics tools, Google Analytics, all that, which are backed by big companies. Why are these people building um, a platform whose code is available on the internet, right? What's the business behind it? Well, um, the reason of building an open source alternative, um, currently, and the reason why we are seeing a surge on companies coming out who are building open source solutions, could be defined mostly in these six reasons. So first of all, and some of these reasons we'll be covering again. So these are mostly some of the reasons why people are um, building new open source solution, and why um, clients and customers are moving from the traditional hosted solutions to these new open source products. Let's discuss few of them. So privacy laws. So recently we are seeing a lot of new privacy laws like GDPR and CPRA, which are standardized law. What they try to do is basically, if you look at these software products, um, they are a software solution used by a third party, provided by a third party, that is used by a certain company for and kind of share their data, user data to it. So for example, if I a lot of us might be using Cred, which is like an online app, which is like an app to maintain your financial things, right? So credit card and stuff. Cred internally uses Mixpanel uh, to kind of um, as of analytics tool. So to track how users are using a Cred, what they are exactly doing inside the product, all these data of user engagement and user behavior is actually captured and kind of sent to third party solutions like Mixpanel. So your user data taken by Cred is now shared with Mixpanel. This is a common practice done by most of the companies, even though ethically there is a lot of laws, and these companies, big companies who are providing SaaS, kind of promise that they are not misusing your data. But again, the software that you are using might be sharing your data to other third party services. And rules like GDPR and CPRA kind of restrict that. So what they basically tell you, what they basically say is, if you are a software company, you cannot share your users data to another third party service, and cannot misuse it. So these kind of laws are coming out, and companies have to be compliant with that. So that is one of the biggest reason. For any company that is building a online software, they use tons of different third party services, tons of SaaS solutions, and they have to share their data, um, because the nature of SaaS itself is hosting the software outside the original product. So your data has to be shared, right? That is the first issue with SaaS, which open source solve. Because the code is there, the company can internally host that, right? So if a certain app wants to have analytics, they can buy the license for analytics, self-host it on their own server, and now the user data don't have to go to other third-party services. That is um, one of the biggest problem that open source SaaS tools can solve. Now, data breaches. So, just like we discussed, these solution they share. Every company that is out there is using kind of tens of different SaaS solution for like different aspect of their product. So for monitoring their backend or doing something as simple as analytics, they rely on multiple tools. And if you do this like basic math and kind of assume the number of the chances of data breaches in these third party vendors, ultimately, because a company is using so many tools, uh, there is a higher chances of data breach. So because not because your software is bad, not because your software is unsafe, because you relying on so many other people, that there is a high chances of data breach in your own software, right? Which is again can be solved using hosting those solutions by yourself. Now, another reason of using self-host solution is the problem with pricing. So all these solution, although you can use third-party solutions to kind of offload your effort of not building everything in-house and using these um, softwares, outsourcing this work to other companies of and sending your data. Ultimately, when you scale up, when you have a lot of users, or when you are transacting a lot of data, you incur a lot of cost because of that. So oh, uh, because you are using some third party solution, you have to kind of as you scale, you have a lot of bills because of that. And that could have been avoided if you self-hosted it. So for getting started, it's okay. For startups, it's okay. But for enterprises, for big companies who are dealing with a lot of data, pricing is also an issue that comes out when you scale. Now, third and one of the most important reason of why we are seeing this self-host or open source thing right now is because of introduction of new technologies like Docker and Kubernetes. So we just saw that in previous three reasons, the answer was to, instead of allowing other people to like maintain the infrastructure, the server and all that, um, the SaaS was there to kind of solve this problem, right? Before AWS or something like that, when you didn't have VM and stuff like that, people used to maintain their own server rooms, had um, um, networking people to kind of build this stack of solutions that could run your backend technologies, right? So all this infrastructure was there. And when SaaS came out, it solved a very basic problem that if I'm building a simple app, I don't have to build a server. That was what SaaS doing. So they are outsourcing. Now, right now, new technologies like Kubernetes and Docker, which are in DevOps, so kind of allow you to build scalable apps in backend. These technology are making running software and updating it in the backend so easy that you don't really need a lot of effort to um, self-host all these solutions, right? Because of things like AWS, GCP, cost of virtual machine and all those is like you can simply go for any third-party server provider, and you can use these new DevOps technology like Docker and Kubernetes, and you can yourself host backend solution. You don't have to build the infrastructure. People like AWS can do that, and you don't have to work on scaling up the software, right? You have new technology in the DevOps domain to deal with that. So that is one of the reason you could self-hosting all these things yourself can still be viable, um, rather than like trading off with your security and pricing and all that. So we just saw like why self-hosting could be a good thing, how you can use available open source available projects and kind of self-host them and not share your data with third party. And Fusion is also a product that allows you to self-host it, so you can use Fusion in your own servers and you can stop sharing data with other providers. But before that, before we come to what Fusion does, what we are doing, which is our product, I'd like to talk about what a product-led growth is. So coming moving from previous topic, um, there are two type of approach when you build a software company, right? You to grow the product, to grow the users and grow the company, there are two typical approaches, right? Sales-led approach and product-led approach. uh, a typical sales-led approach is, you have these people who are master in selling software to enterprises and companies. You give them this software to like sell it, right? So there are people with headphones going online talking with these representatives of different companies, and they sell your product. That is one thing that you do, and where you kind of need this manpower. And then um, a new thing is product led growth, right? So a product led growth simply means building a product that is so much good, so good that users love it, and they themselves share it, right? The product itself is so great that you don't have to spend a lot on marketing, spend a lot of money on sharing that this platform exists that you should use. The platform is so good, people are not leaving it and people themselves are sharing. A good example is Slack, right? None of us saw a Slack advertise on YouTube, right? We already know something like Slack exists. They spend like very less on advertising. So which is one of the best examples of product led growth. They build the product so good that people already know it. So that's the one thing, and it basically helps you in longer run, because now you don't have to like work a lot on sales man work a lot on like manpower, so salespeople or marketing cost, all those things you don't have to do that. Just build the product, and it will naturally grow. So how do you actually build a product that users love, right? And that is where product analytics comes in. So product analytics basically is software that allows you to understand who your users are, how they're using your product, allows you to understand different trends in the user behavior so that you can engage with them in real time and improve your product by finding out if there is certain pain point in your product. So for example, um, let's say if I have built a certain app, I'm giving it to users, and I see people are coming in but they are not actually liking any product or putting it into cart, right? Why the If I have analytics on the product, I could see that the button, there should be a button here so that they can actually go and add these products into cart and later on go and buy. Because I have not built that, users kind of have to go back and search for that particular button, and because of that bad user experience, people are literally uninstalling the app. So these things could be avoided by having product analytics, and then you can kind of build back your theory on top of this user data that you have, and then you kind of you can go and build features and fix bugs so that your product becomes great. That's how you can use product analytics. And Fusion is also a product analytics suite. So how we differentiate from others is, apart from like giving a full stack solution of allowing people to track how people are using their um, um, mobile apps and websites, but we also kind of make it in an open source way. So it's been couple of people for Fusion, it's been just us couple of people who are remotely building the product, and then we have um, open source contributors who come online and kind of contribute and fix the code. And because we are open source, big companies who kind of have this compliance issue, or people who don't want to share their user data, they can self-host Fusion, and now they don't have to share your data to another third-party analytics provider. So that's how we differentiate. um, so how you can benefit from this, right? Given that most of the developers, be it in this hackathon or out of this, a lot of us actually build side projects. And we mostly, it's open so people can see the code. So essentially what you can do is go out, find a SaaS product which is solving certain problem, and if you identify certain key point that is missing in that SaaS product, you can basically build a similar tool, make it open source, build a community around it, community of developers and designers, and use that workforce to build another open source SaaS product. And and then kind of use product analytics tools just like Fusion, and improve that product and kind of make a business out of it. So that's how you can convert your own side project to a SaaS product involving the community. So you can find us out on GitHub. Our website is fusionhq.co. We are also open to contributors. You can contribute and create pull requests, solve any bugs that are there on the platform. Uh, Feel free to star us on GitHub and also join our Discord group. So that's it from my side. So maybe yeah, Prashant, maybe
That's great because it was really an informative and very knowledgeable session.
we can take some questions if.
Uh, right now, I can't see any questions here. I want to ask a question like, are there any challenges?
तू muted है.
Yeah.
Are there any challenges there uh, as for using as a open source as a SaaS for our business?
So it kind of depends. So mostly in many applications, um, so challenges as in for the user or for the open source product company. So what kind of challenge? So for
Just
the,
mining.
can you am I audible, guys? I hope I'm audible. Am I audible, guys?
Yeah, you are audible.
Yeah. So Prashant, what kind of like
Actually, there is
challenges
a network issue at my side,
challenges for the open
like
source?
some security issue.
Yeah. So mostly recently we saw like log4j, right? So when we are dealing
Yeah.
with certain kind of open source projects, where we have this code that is already out there, and people see like what's going on behind, it's most of the time you can see like if there is some vulnerabilities there or not, and people can like misuse it. So this is an issue with open source project where you don't have any people who are backing it, right? So if you look at Linux, it's a group of people, and Linux Foundation is there that is backing it. So it's not just the contributor, there are like a couple of people as well. And if you look at Red Hat, which again on top is building on top of Linux, and but again it's a company, so they are selling it, so they also maintain it. So if a SaaS project is there that is backed by a company, a proper organization, then the chances of kind of vulnerabilities and security is less, because again it's a company that is going kind of continuously fixing apart from the community. But if it's a open source project someone has built, and there is a community but there is no group that is like actively fixing it, then there could be security issue. Most of these companies who provide open source SaaS, they also provide you support as well, because ultimately, even though the project is open source at the core, it's a company and it's a SaaS, so they kind of support you.
Yeah, thank you. That's great to know. Like we have all the support of our community. If anything goes wrong, yeah, that's cool. So there are no more questions, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah. It was a really, really very informative and very knowledgeable session, and our audience has definitely gained a lot from it. And thank you, because uh,
Uh, sure.
and
Thanks.
one question popped up.
Yeah.
If you want to take anything around WebAssembly
Yeah. I think the cloud
for
computing.
computing.
Yeah. So yeah, yeah. That's a really good trend right now. Around web assemblies. So just for our users, products that we build on a browser, basically web apps or websites, they tend to lack the speed when you kind of have like super interactive products. For example, we have Adobe for like editing stuff. So if you are natively building that kind of complex app where you have editing and all that, that could be that are well suited to build. You're supposed to build it on native environment, so like desktop app and stuff like that. If you try to build that in website in a web form, so like website that someone can go and edit a video and all that, it was usually really tough to do that because you lack that speed in the browser. Technologies like WebAssembly allow you to like write low level code in the browser, so you can build super complex app and it will still work fine in the browser. So websites written in low level language, you can take advantage of that speed and build apps. So a really good example is Figma. So it's editor just like Photoshop, but it's a website. So it gives almost similar experience, just like you are using just like you have installed Photoshop in your app, but it's again on cloud. So because it's hosted, you don't have any kind of speed issue, right? They have this cloud infrastructure. Figma runs clearly on their GPU, their RAM. You can like easily use it. So that is one thing, that is also a really good trend where people are using WebAssembly to build web app, so you don't have to install it, and they can provide their own RAM and stuff and kind of give you a really good experience. There is um, another platform called Mighty, which is a browser that runs on cloud. So they also have done similar thing. They have taken the Chromium, which is the engine that was used that is there, that is used to like build Chrome. They use that. Um, they run it on cloud. You just have a client. So all of us know like how much RAM Chrome consumes generally. So you can still use this new app because you just have client on your desktop. The actual Chrome browser is running on their server. Yeah, another really good question there. Can I customize SaaS to my needs? Yeah, so the one of the uh, positive point about open source SaaS is that the code is there, so you can customize it. Again, it depends on the company. So some open source company kind of actually open source a certain part of the product, right? So the core product is open source. The code is available of the core product. There will be some features that are not open source, so you cannot see the code. You are not allowed to kind of use it unless you buy a license. But the most of the platform will be open source. These kind of companies are called open core, so their core is open source. So if you have such companies, and again there are licenses, so someone use fair code, and some of them have like MIT. So given the license, if the license permit, you can use the open source project, customize it and use it. I think that's also advisable. A lot of big enterprises, they if they're using SaaS tool, they'll ask the company to customize the solution for them. So like change the UI or add a certain feature for me. If that particular product was open source, they could just ask their developers to like change it in house. So that is also a good thing about open source SaaS. Smaller companies cannot afford to have customization in SaaS products. It's only the big companies that can tell and afford that kind of customization. So I hope that answers.
Yeah, that's great to know. So, are there any questions, audience? I guess it is it. So, thank you, Vikas, a lot for being with us and sharing your amazing knowledge. And thank you so
Thanks
much.
for having me, Prashant.
Yeah,
A great job with
thank
DotSlash. I hope to see a lot of developers from DotSlash to like come and contribute to Fusion, also use it. So yeah,
yeah. Thank you, Vikas. And hey everyone, if you have still not registered for the dot slash, you please do register it now. Problem statements has already been released and idea submission phase is going on. So please don't wait for it. And thank you for being a patient audience with us. And see you in the next session. And stay tuned for it. And happy hacking and happy new year in advance. Meet you soon.